Hello, fellow Vaginismus sisters. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the space. Please say hello. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from, and just say hi in the chat. We're getting started for our 3-day initiation, Your Erotic Revolution, a love story. And I'm so proud of you for being here, for showing up for yourself, for being in this conversation that doesn't get had enough in our society, as we all know. Hi, Kay. Nice to see you. I want you to know that I'll be interacting with you today. You're welcome to interact back with me either through comments or through actually speaking. If you would like to speak, know that you will be on the recording with that. And otherwise, I'm happy to read out your comments as we move forward. So where are you coming from, Kay? From NC. Welcome. We've got another Kay here, an old friend. Hello. I'm so excited to be here with you. This is a culmination of a long time of connecting and going deep into the layers of this protective mechanism that vaginismus is. And we're about to go into some of the deeper layers here today and get to know each other. So, welcome to Your Erotic Revolution, a love story. Please get settled. Make comfort a priority. So get nice and cozy, maybe get a warm drink, a blanket, whatever feels nice so that you can make sure that you're feeling comfortable and can be present for this time together. Feel free to interact in the chat once again. And I also have the comments coming in from Facebook if we've got anyone watching us in our free Facebook group. And if you're not in there yet, this is an invitation to join us on Facebook as well if you'd like. So, I would love to know you're coming in here into the space and what? Maybe you are here and tired after a long day. Maybe you are here and excited. Maybe you're here and hungry. And if that's the case, go get a snack or a meal to enjoy while we speak with each other. Let us know in the chat. I am here and excited. I am here and inspired by all fellow Vaginismus sisters around the world who are showing up for themselves. So here and what? Let us know. I'm going to keep moving and read out the comments as they come. Some guidelines for us. Safety is our top priority, and this goes for absolutely every single interaction we have in our Vaginismus Sisters community, because as we're about to learn, safety is really the name of the game with claiming our sexual liberation. That means anything you share with us here stays between us. Everything is confidential. And of course, in events like this that are community-wide, that means being shared with our fellow Vaginismus sisters who also do choose to show up for themselves and watch on the recording. Hello, everyone watching on the recording. I'm applauding you, celebrating you for making this time for yourself as well. Kay says, I'm here and curious and excited. We've got 3 Ks in the chat. I love it. Beautiful. Welcome. Kay is also coming in from our Sexually Liberated program. I'm so happy that you're here. So safety, confidentiality, comfort, and nourishment. And in terms of the principles that we go by in our work together, love and self-compassion do come first. We are about to speak about love and self-compassion as being one of the secret ingredients, you could say, to our erotic revolution. And so I invite you to infuse every interaction with yourself as the most important person in your life with that kindness and love and compassion. Also, we are here because we are growing. We are creating an empowering space for our erotic freedom. That means share with each other, celebrate each other, Give each other advice if it is asked for. That's a really important piece. Sometimes the best thing that we could do and the thing that we actually want is to share with someone for the purpose of sharing and getting something off our chest. So only if guidance and advice is asked for, please do, um, you know, add value to a fellow vaginismus sister in whatever way you feel called. Curiosity, play, and celebration are also top priorities. My personal relationship to play had to be a little bit nourished and loved on in order for me to overcome vaginismus. And I imagine that may be the case for you as well, is putting play and pleasure higher up on the priorities list. And overall, everything we do here is an invitation. So you are invited into it. You get to decide whether to go for some of the practices we're about to embark on, some of the conversations, etc. Find and honor your truth, and all of you is welcome, all of the parts. So day one, here we go, your erotic revolution. And Dee says, hi Dee, I'm here and feeling relaxed. Beautiful, thanks for sharing. I'm also checking to see if there's any comments on Facebook. So this is for you if you're a fellow vaginismus sister. You are experiencing vaginismus and you would like to deactivate this protective body response for good. Now, what do I mean by that? Put vaginismus in the past and meet your intimacy goals, whatever those are. Those could be having a successful pain-free pap smear, wearing a tampon or a menstrual cup, enjoying penetrative sex in ways of using toys or fingers or a partner's finger. That could be PIV sex, which stands for penis in vagina sex. This is for you if you have any of these intimacy goals and you're currently experiencing that brick wall between your legs, the great wall of vagina, I like to say, and you would like for that to no longer be the case. Tolerating excruciating pain is not something we do around here. No pain, no gain is no longer a way that I live by, and I imagine that you live by, and we do not want to be gritting our teeth through that physical pain. Of course, emotional pain may be part of the journey forward, but let's commit all together that we're going to say no to tolerating pain. I remember trying to push through my vaginal opening during my penetrative sex attempts and also my tampon insertion attempts, and it truly feeling like someone warmed up a knife over the fire until it was glowing red hot and then slowly inserted it in the most tender parts of my body. We don't wish that upon anyone. So why do it to ourselves, right? Let me know if you can resonate with some of that, if you could relate. I'd love to know in the comments. In terms of this initiation, it is meant to gently blast you towards kicking some vaginismus butt. And we're doing that with love as the main weapon, of course. Hopefully, by the end of these 3 days together, you are feeling that inner call, that inner drive, that inner spark. You are feeling inspired to write your very own love story. That is my wish for you. And perhaps you're already there. Perhaps you're already, Katrin, I am feeling super driven. I have been in action. And if that's the case, then these 3 days are going to act as a little bit of extra jet fuel, you could say, to the path that you're already on. So let's take a moment to show ourselves some love, to put the body first. I'm going to invite you into a short little practice to get present and get grounded. So if you would like to, go ahead and find a comfortable space. That might mean going to lay down or sitting in a chair and really leaning back and enjoying. We're not going to do this with music just for copywriting reasons, but if we deepen our work together going forward, I'm going to have some beautiful music for you as well. So go ahead and soften your gaze. Your eyes might still be open, but perhaps you allow yourself to soften, starting with the eyes and the eyelids. If it feels good, until they gently close shut. And just notice the sensations that are present. And maybe outside of the sensations, you notice some sounds around you. You notice the taste in your mouth. If your hands are on your body, you notice the texture that you feel underneath your fingertips. And then bring your awareness to the sensation of your breath, simply as it is right now. Noticing the sensations of that inhale of air through the nostrils and an exhale out the mouth. And as you notice the breath, the only thing that has been with you ever since you entered this world, perhaps you'll notice how it also gently deepens. Inviting yourself to deepen still, noticing how your lungs expand on every inhale. Perhaps your jelly expands forward. And on the exhale, bringing the belly in. And let's just take another 3 deep breaths together. Elongating the exhale to be slightly longer than the inhale. Beautiful. And now bring your awareness to your eyes and just notice if there's any more tension there. Relax the eyes, relax the eyebrows and the forehead. Bringing your awareness down the face to the mouth and the jaw, letting your lips part open if they aren't already. Perhaps letting your mouth drop open a little bit more as you relax the jaw. And as you keep breathing, moving down your awareness to your shoulders now, letting them sink down comfortably onto the rest of your body. Then tracing down the spine and noticing if there's an opportunity to lean back just a little bit more. There's a surface behind you, letting yourself be held by that support structure so you can rest and relax just a little more deeply. Tracing all the way down the spine to your hips, letting your hips relax and release just with your intention. And then bringing your awareness down to your vulva. Just saying hello. Noticing how she's doing today. Noticing if she speaks back with any sensation, perhaps some warmth or tingling, or perhaps you don't feel anything at all, which is also perfect. You're just getting in the habit of involving her in our conversation. And from here, imagine on your next inhale now that you're inhaling the air from the bottom of the spine and it's moving up the spine to the top of the head. So inhaling up the spine to the top of the head and then hold it there. Take a little bit more breath in and then exhale out through the mouth. And without a pause at the bottom, go ahead and inhale up the spine again to the top of the head, holding it there as though there's an energy pooling at the top of the head like a waterfall of breaths. Inhale a little bit more and then release that water down the outside of the body. One more round. Inhaling up the spine. Holding, and then a little bit more in. And then slowly exhaling through the mouth, as though that energy now pulls down at the bottom of the pelvis. Coming back to a normal breath now, whatever that means for you, whatever's comfortable. And for the last part of this exercise, I invite you to take one of your hands and using your fingertips, gently touch somewhere on your face. Just as though those fingers are like feathers and you're lightly grazing the little hairs on your skin, on your jawline or your cheeks, giving yourself this touch with a really nourishing intention. Noticing the subtleties of pleasure that might be available here. Beautiful. And now we'll move this to more of a massage down the neck and the shoulder. If you'd like to get both hands involved, go for it. And with a little more pressure now, or a lot more pressure if you prefer, give yourself that well-deserved massage. You might notice the deepening of the breath, perhaps the holding of the breath, if that tends to be a pattern. Noticing that about yourself now. Perfect. And finally, we'll place one hand on our chest around the heart and one on the lower belly. And here we'll take another few breaths together in stillness. With nowhere else to be and nothing else to do. Allow yourself to enjoy this moment, just you and you. And take the opportunity here to thank yourself, thank your body, thank yourself for being here and for taking this time. Thank yourself for your resilience, for everything you've been through, everything you've persevered through, for that roller coaster of emotion that you've ridden perhaps lately or some time ago. Honor yourself for how amazingly you've done despite it all. And one last breath. And when you're ready, feel free to come back, slowly opening your eyes. And do a little stretch if you'd like, if that feels good. Amazing. Welcome back. Let me know how that was for you. I'd also love to know which touch you felt that perhaps you preferred, whether it was the light, feathery touch on the face, a massage on the shoulders, or even the stillness at the end. We quite often miss out on giving ourselves that gift of stillness, of rest, of silence. And I'll read out the comments as they come. So, your erotic revolution. These are the 3 days we're going to be moving through together. Today, we're talking about the past. Tomorrow is the present. See what I did there? Because the present truly is a gift. And on day 3, we're talking all about the future. So Kay says it's 10:20 p.m. here on a Friday. It felt like a good start to reset myself for the weekend. Beautiful. So on day 1 today, we are diving into who are you? I know that's a big question. Why are you here? The revolution that's ahead, your love story. Who is Katrin? That's me. Our common past and some lenses of vaginismus that will be helpful for us to look through to understand this protective body response so that we can deactivate it, release it, let it go. And finally, we'll touch on some insights, questions, celebrations, and I'll tell you about our giveaway. So make sure you stay till the end for that. Who are you? I wanted to start with this because it is so important to me to know you, to get to know you, to know your story. I have had conversations in the DMs through text and voice notes with so many of you because I want to know you. And it is so important for us to feel seen by others, but most importantly, also by us. And sharing our story can be such an empowering experience. It could be a humbling experience. It could lead to so much gratitude for ourselves to know where we have been and where we have come to so that we can celebrate that path and we can look forward with more hope and confidence that we've got this. And I know you've got this. So if you'd like to share a couple of words about what labels might come to you in terms of who are you? Of course, this is a deeper, more philosophical question of whether the labels can truly define us or not. And if you'd like to share a little bit about your vaginismus story, please do that now. Whether if you're watching on the recording, shoot me a message and tell me. I want to know you. I want to see where you've been, where you're going, what are your desires. So I want to hear your story. In terms of where you're going, right? Why are you here? This is an initiation, and I've said that word a couple of times, and I want to just take a moment to reflect on, why an initiation and what is it truly to be initiated, to initiate yourself? This is to cause a process or action to begin. So to someone, admit someone into a secret or potentially obscure society or group, typically with a ritual. And I like this part of the definition as well because this work that we do together is a little bit of a admittance, an initiation, a welcoming to our Vaginismus Sisters sisterhood and the community that we've built. So I invite you to consider, have you initiated yourself into your erotic revolution? And whether this is through, just thought and contemplation mentally or emotionally, you felt like you've gone through an initiation and a commitment to yourself to create change within your life, to cause a process to begin your own sexual liberation. Perhaps that is something you'd like to reflect on. When did that happen for you? And if it hasn't happened yet, then perhaps these 3 days are a time for that. The initiation that I'm thinking of too is a welcoming and claiming of your own sister story as a vaginismus sister. And I have dedicated a category on the Love Diary blog on my website for sister stories for fellow vaginismus sisters who have met their intimacy goals or who are in the process of meeting their intimacy goals to share as a source of inspiration for others. And I know for myself, the very few resources that I was able to access back in the day when I was moving through vaginismus myself, they really did serve me in so many ways that I couldn't even really understand at the time. And so the initiation and the invitation is, let's have it a goal for your story to be in the sister stories on the Love Diary to inspire a fellow vaginismus sister. If you would like your story to be there already, send me an email, message me on social media. In terms of this revolution that we're also speaking to, right? This is a drastic, sudden, extreme, complete, or wide-reaching change in conditions, attitude, or operation, and it is a turning point in history when significant change occurs. I invite you to reflect. What has been one of your moments of significant change, a revolution in your vaginismus story so far? There may have been a moment that comes to mind where you made a decision that you are not going to go down that path that maybe a doctor suggested, for example, of managing vaginismus for the rest of your life. That is not what we're here for. We do not want to be managing something that can be released as part of our reality. And it absolutely can be. And I know that 100%. And so I want to share a little bit of a story in, in parallel to this revolution that I've put it as that each woman is deserving of a wildly pleasurable, playful, and fulfilling sex life that is rooted in love, trust, and emotional safety. That is the revolution we're speaking to. That is the movement that I invite you into. Um, and this is what I believe in. That is, every woman is deserving of a wildly pleasurable, playful, and fulfilling sex life, and that it is possible for each one of us. So the story of my revolution that I want to share is something I've named the transvaginal torment. Ooh, when I think about this, yeah, it was a turning point. Picture this, it's the summer of 2010, I believe it was, about the same year that I realized through those late night Google searches that I was experiencing vaginismus. Let me do this so I can really speak with you. This was a time when I needed to rule out any physical reasons that I may be going through this bracing, this tightening response, the cycle of pain. And my doctor, after having told me that I need to just wait because my body must not be ready yet, which had some truth in it, but it was a very disappointing response to get from a family doctor. And then telling me that I should just relax and have a glass of wine in order to maybe feel like I can allow my partner inside of me. He then suggested that maybe we need to rule out any internal growths that may be leading to pain. And of course, this is the last thing that we want to do when we cannot bear penetration. I couldn't have a pelvic exam without excruciating pain and lifting my butt off the table. In fact, the first time that wasn't possible at all. But I followed doctor's orders and I went to get a transvaginal ultrasound, not knowing if I can even let the speculum inside, the wand, right, the ultrasound stick, but feeling like this has to be part of what I do. I just have to push through. No pain, no gain, as some of us have grown up with as an idea. And I remember being on that table in excruciating pain as I just gritted my teeth, allowing this woman to slowly insert the speculum inside of me. And there was just tears rolling down the side of my face and pulling on those little crinkly sheets of paper in the office. And when we were done, all I wanted to do was curl up and just be home and disappear. But I needed to go back and take off that gown that I was in and get dressed and pretend everything's okay and go about the rest of my day. And of course, this ultrasound technician noticed that I was in excruciating pain. And she came to me in an attempt of, sharing compassion and love and understanding, which was nice as an intention. And I remember her just as I exited that room and was going to put my gown into those buckets. She came to me and said, "It's okay, honey. It's going to get better after you have kids." I felt the warmth in my body boiling up, the panic, like, what? What do you mean? This is this is the advice you're giving me that it's going to get better after I have kids, but how about having a partner? And I had a partner at the time, but I was so insecure about being able to keep a partner, not being able to give him what he wanted and of course what I wanted also. Then getting married, which is my idea around, the time sequence of how things happen. And then only after I get pregnant, if that's even possible, because I couldn't yet let my partner inside of my body, how would I conceive? And then how would I give birth? And only then it's going to get better? What? For a little while, I sulked in that idea of like, oh my goodness, what if she's right? But before I had left that office that day, that anger, which really is a source of power and drive in our lives so often, that anger acted in me coming to the clear-cut decision of, I'm going to prove this lady wrong. This is not going to be my future. I am going to beat this before ever coming to the decision of conceiving, getting pregnant, starting a family with my person. And that was the moment of my revolution in my vaginismus story. If that hadn't happened, I'm not sure I would have lit that fire underneath my butt, which already was there in terms of the burning pain of vaginismus, but the additional fire and the drive and the surge of motivation to do this. So that was a moment that would have made it or broke it. And I want to know if you can relate and what your moment of your revolution has been so far. What was that turning point in your story? I want to know. Tell me. And if you're watching on the recording, write me a message. I want to know. And let's share those pivotal shifts that we needed to take, whether it was from a mindset perspective or a physical shift that served as our window opening into the opportunity of like, oh my goodness, maybe this will work. I can do this. So please do share. This was my transvaginal torment. And I did prove that lady wrong. And I know that she came to me with good intention. And I am so thankful that she did anger me for that entire day and week forward, because she helped me see my power. And the invitation through some of the emotional components we do together in this work is to access that power and to access the emotional truth that our experiences bring us. Because there's a lot of meaning and messages in our emotional experiences. So, what has been a turning point so far in your vaginismus journey for you? Tell us. We are speaking about a love story, and in any love story, in any hero's journey, really, there are these stages of the curiosity and excitement, the barrier standing in the way, quite literally, the fallout and disconnection from ourselves, and then the personal journey that leads to reconnection. So I invite you, after we finish speaking today, to reflect on what were some of the key moments in your love story thus far. Where was your reclamation? What did the fallout and disconnection look like or does look like right now? And also connect to that curiosity and excitement that you had initially. I remember being so excited about having penetrative sex with my first boyfriend at 18 years old. I was in my first relationship, and there was genuine excitement and arousal and curiosity. And there was an idea of like downloading a Kama Sutra app to look at all the positions that we're going to be able to experience together. That curiosity and excitement we need to stay connected to. And I know it's so hard. It's so hard considering the layers of pain and disappointment and frustration that hide that suppress that and push it away. And as a home play activity, I do invite you to reflect on these stages of your love story and get connected to that curiosity and excitement that is going to keep you fueling forward. So just a little bit about me. This is not about me. This is about us, our common story. Just in case you don't know why I'm speaking about the topic and why I'm relevant in the picture, I guess. I would call myself a fellow vaginismus sister who freed herself. And I have found the purpose and passion to help you do the same, and specifically, rather than help you do the same, walk with you as you free yourself too. I like maybe the word guide, if anything, a sexual liberation guide. because I feel like there's a big difference between a guide and a coach, where a guide has walked the walk, the path is a few steps forward and gets to look back and say, hey, you know, these are the milestones to hit. This is the path to walk. These are the steps to take. I did it. And that's how I know. And of course, everyone's journey is different, is unique, but there are some guiding principles and pillars of what is required for us to claim our sexual freedom. So I went from the Great Wall of Vagina to passionately enjoying PIV sex. I never thought that that was going to be possible because after I experienced that brick wall and that red hot knife entering my vaginal opening, entering my vagina through my vaginal opening, I remember thinking, how does anyone enjoy this thing? How could this ever be pleasurable? I don't get it. And if you're there too, I just want to emphasize that there is a turning point and the pain does transform to pleasure, internal pleasure. So that is possible for you since I thought it was the farthest thing from the truth for me. And here we are. The philosophy that guides my work is that overcoming vaginismus is really all about finding a sense of safety in surrender. That requires working with all parts of us, the whole woman, all body parts, emotional, mental, spiritual, you could say, nourishing the mind, body, and soul back to safety, curiosity, play, and pleasure, and using a holistic approach. Because I tried to poke myself with a dilator, which was the physical approach I eventually got recommended. I did that too soon before the nervous system work, the emotional work, and the erotic work that would have prepared me to having the physical work actually land and for my body to feel safe enough to allow something inside of myself. The other philosophy that I stand for is that it's okay to be a glow stick. Sometimes we have to break before we shine. And I feel that for anyone's hero's journey, for your hero journey, that pain leads you to your purpose. The pain leads you to the play and the pleasure. And of course, we wish that there was no pain at all. And still, the experience of the pain somehow makes the sweetness of the result and hopefully also the journey there, it makes it that much more potent and enjoyable. So it's okay to be a glow stick. I hope you remember that. Part of my story is also quite well summarized in this. My partner's penis literally was bending, and I started to doubt whether I had a vaginal opening. So if that's you, I want you to know you're not alone in that. This is also possible, and I wanted to invite you into that curiosity of what is possible. And the fact is that if someone else did it, you could do it too, right? Grace's story on the right, we worked together. After years of trying in just the second month, she was going to be a mother. Countless stories exist on the Love Diary, and sometimes comparison is something difficult to be with. Comparison is sometimes the thief of all joy, and it can also be a source of motivation and certainty and confidence and hope. So I invite you to explore on the Love Diary both the sister stories that I mentioned as well as the testimonials section, just for that spark of, all right, well, there's nothing different between you and I, you and a fellow Vaginismus sister. If she could do it, you could do it too. And hopefully that's an empowering thing for you. So my past, my present, and my future in a little visual here. The future that I'm speaking to is the movement. That's why it's faceless, because I see all fellow Vaginismus sisters as reconnecting to themselves, to their bodies in a way that is safe, pleasurable, nourishing, and then erotically alive. But, you know, I hadn't started off there, of course. So this is the evolution that I invite you into. And back in the day, if you told me I'll be helping people live a life full of play and pleasure, I literally would have created a spreadsheet to prove to you that you have confused me with someone else. Definitely Excel was where I hung out quite a bit. It was part of my life, also in my profession before, which was an accountant, a CPA. I was very much raised in a left-brained, kind of structural, logical way, and I climbed the corporate ladder, which was to my detriment in many ways, considering my well-being was at the bottom of the priorities list. And yes, I overcame vaginismus while I was still climbing the corporate ladder, but yeah, I see the purpose in that. Um, so I'm curious if you too have had that experience, the corporate world, the shift from the left-brained to a more whole-bodied approach into inviting your creativity, your femininity, your sensuality to come to center stage in your life? Let me know. And Kay says, I'm just checking in on the chat, my turning point is becoming aware of the brick wall for the first time and then realizing all the potential reasons for it, which started when I was a child. Beautiful, Kay. And Kay has made so much amazing progress. If you want to share, Kay, about some of your wins, we'd love to celebrate you. Dee says, I'm a very curious person, currently working student in a foreign country. My goal is to transition from dilators to PIV. I relate to your story. My turning point was when I started educating myself on the topic. Amazing, Dee. I love that you dove into that education, right? You looked for information, for the guidance that you deserve. Um, so I support you in that goal. All right, Kay's heading out, so she won't be able to share the celebrations, but I hope everything's okay on that side, Kay, that personal emergency you just mentioned. So, if you would like to read more of my story, I invite you to head to the About Katrin section on my website, katrinwithlove.com. You'll be able to read each step of the way and see what else we can relate to. So I don't love small talk, so we're about to jump into some deep talk here. These are some of the common experiences we share as Vaginismus sisters. And the idea, the intention is for those to help us understand this protective body response. Notice I don't call it a sexual dysfunction because when we put that label on ourselves, it starts to become part of our identity as though we are dysfunctional. And no, 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 we don't want to go there. So protective body response, the idea of switching it off, deactivating it. And it's important to understand some of the common themes in order to do that. So these are some of the more surface level stories, and then we're about to get into the deeper layers too, that I would love to tell you about. And I want to know which ones you're curious about because there are stories here that we can spend hours on. So drop in the chat which number you'd like to hear. But when it comes to sex and shame related themes, playing pretend in private was me and my cousin when we were little playing relationship games as though I was the wife and she was the husband, and we somehow went into reenacting intimacy and sex, and that felt so fun and playful and exciting. But it also somehow held this in hiding texture to it, and therefore shame that started to bubble up around, should we be doing this? The don't touch there is a story that involves my grandpa that created a subconscious programming within myself to avoid my vulva and my clitoris at all. Because when I was 6 years old and I was playing with my toys and with my clitoris at the same time in my grandparents' living room, and he walked in on that site and he pointed at me and he said, "Don't touch that." That registered to my subconscious as, this man that I love and trust and I look up to and is safe and is good and loves me is telling me not to touch there. I guess that's bad. So I shut that part out. And this memory only came to me when I started working with some of the emotional healing practices from the Tibetan tradition that I teach, because I didn't know before this. And it was during a meditation that this memory surfaced. So I just want to mention that to say we don't always know the reasons for which we are experiencing vaginismus, what caused vaginismus for us. Um, but they can surface when we are in a state of readiness for processing them. There's inappropriate and early sex education in my life that had some sort of impact on how I perceived intimacy and sex. It came from the male perspective, and it was quite early in my life since my father decided to give us the sex talk at the same time with my sister, who's 3 years older than me. And that actually led to me drawing my understanding of sex. And my dad used all the details and the body parts and how it all works and the sperm coming out of the penis and inseminating the egg. So these ideas that I had led me to drawing sex, a man and a woman. And I remember drawing his penis really long out of his body, touching between the legs at the vulva, though I didn't know those words at the time, the woman. And when my English teacher back in Bulgaria caught me with this drawing, I was in big trouble. And I recalled this memory too that shut down this curiosity, this okayness, this, yeah, interest in how humaning works. Let me know if you can relate to some of that. And if there is that story you'd like me to go into more detail of, please drop a number and tell me which ones you can relate to so far. Female mentor being, absent in life could be one for you. And by the way, in terms of the sex education, it's possible you never got any. And the very thing that we haven't learned to speak about, when language isn't used to speak about something, it really pretty much doesn't exist because language creates our reality. So if we never spoke about sex, our vulva, our vagina, those just didn't exist for us. And we disconnect from our body, from the hips under. And no wonder then that the mind to body connection is severed and we don't quite have an awareness and a presence with the full range of motion of those pelvic floor muscles, for example, which are so natural. But once we disconnect from them, it does become harder to reconnect again. There was a sex ban that was put on by my sister where she made me promise not to have sex with my boyfriend at the time. So that definitely, you know, did a number on me. And in terms of some of the physical pieces, I had nightmares and night terrors as a kid. I slept walked. There was a lot of stress that was built up in my nervous system that led me to not feeling like I could rest even at night. And there are certain things to look out for too now, to identify whether your nervous system is in high alert and if you are stuck in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or shutdown. And we're going to touch on some of these trauma responses as well later on. But let me know if you can relate. Did you grind your teeth like I did? Did you experience panic attacks ever? I had two in my life. There was a childhood injury on a physical level that I was meant to hide from my grandparents just so I don't ruin my grandma's birthday. That was something that created the association, that pelvic pain that I was going through, and I literally couldn't pee without strong burning sensations for the next week and a bit. I needed to hide that just because that's what I was told. And if there was that sort of association for you in your life around being in silence, around your discomforts, around physical pain in your body, that may have deepened the notion of pushing through pain and discomfort, and hence deepening the cycle of pain once you did come face to face with that through vaginismus. I had knee and back pain, so purely from a physical level, our quads might be tight. That's a common experience of our vaginismus story. Our glutes might be weak, our core might be tight as well, and all of that leads to a pulling imbalance both in other muscle groups that lead to physical pain in other areas, but definitely also in the pelvic floor muscles. So let me know if you had that or you also experienced constipation like I did. Trouble with swallowing pills is a big one for us. Also injections, whether it's fear of injections or As was the case for me, I had a severe sinus infection, which led to an eye infection, and hence I couldn't have my antibiotics orally. They had to be intravenous. And my veins were literally hiding. I don't know how they do this. It's a scientific thing apparently, but my body was protecting itself through not letting the penetrative act of injections actually happen to well enough to find my veins. And interestingly, a body that is in a survival mode will do things like this, just like my throat would close up when I would try to swallow pills. So again, let me know. What could you relate to on that? There's a tickling terror story that I can tell. Um, and my dad also taught my sister and I when we were younger, and of course, well-intentioned and well-meaning. But if you two ever had the conditioning of sucking in your stomach and holding your stomach in order to meet standard beauty standards, then that could have been a physical contributing factor to your experience of vaginismus. Now, some of the deeper layers here. Our nervous system being on high alert. If you were startled easily, then we have something in common. No avenue for emotional expression. This was because my parents weren't really emotionally available, or their emotional intelligence was not there yet because of the difficult things they've experienced in their lives. And so I didn't quite feel like I had a space to be held in my emotional expression. And oftentimes, vaginismus acts as this container at our pelvic floor that holds um, all of that emotional chaos at the bottom, just as our throat closing kind of stifles our expression at our throat. And there is this container of containment, of pressure, of tightening. Um, there's a lot of interconnections between our vocal cords and our throat in general, as well as with our pelvic floor muscles. And so part of the journey too of overcoming vaginismus is coming into right relationship with our healthy expression, our emotional expression. A theme that was the case for me is that productivity always came before rest. And my self-worth was tied up in doing, my sense of self and my value was tied up in what I achieved and how I could make my parents proud. I was walking on eggshells at home. Let me know if you could relate to that, if your parents fought a lot when you were younger, and maybe they didn't. And still, there was some potential emotional layer, deeper layer to um, the protective response that of vaginismus for you. Finding safety and control is another theme. I put my head down in the books, I focused on studies and then later work because we naturally turn to the things that we feel like we can have some sort of control over in order to feel good. When there is chaos in other realms of life that you feel like you can't quite solve or add value to, as was the case with my parents fighting a lot, I found my safe space in my room with my head down in the books, getting in the zone and finding safety and control, therefore. Um, Subconscious fear of the masculine was a thing for me because of the outbursts, emotional outbursts that I experienced with my father. And if you too had some sort of less than nourishing experiences with a male figure, there could be a subconscious mistrust or lack of safety with the masculine. There was also repression of the feminine. Lots of stories connect to this, but my parents thought that I was going to be a boy, and they've shared that they would have loved to have a boy, considering they already had a girl, my older sister. And there was a subconscious, subtle layer of wanting to be a man, a boy, so as to, again, make my parents proud. And I was a tomboy growing up. I had shut down the feminine, um, sensual parts of myself. And that reclamation was an important layer of overcoming vaginismus as well, as may be the case for you. Let me know if you can relate. Because of my parents' difficult relationship, there was a difficulty for me to notice a healthy model of relating and intimacy. I took a mediator role with them, didn't really quite feel like I have a place to address my own needs and wants, and I needed to take sides in certain times of my life, so that meant people-pleasing tendencies came to life. Any fellow people pleasers in the room? Yes, I see a hand go up. Yeah. Um, that is a big one for us. And learning to set healthy boundaries while also addressing our wants and needs is another big component of claiming our sexual liberation. So the good girl identity, the high performer, alpha woman identity, that was all of those have been and some continue to be ones that I grapple with. And that's to say that we also don't need to be completely healed. And I don't really like the word healed. We're not innately broken. We don't need to do any healing. We're already whole and complete. But what I want to say is that we don't have to be on the other side of all of these deeper layers of our growth and our less than nourishing slash traumatic experiences of life in order to overcome vaginismus. So it is all sort of a spectrum and it all plays together. One thing definitely supports the other, but we can still be grappling with some of these identities being on the other side of vaginismus. And hopefully that serves as a bit of a sigh of relief for you. And again, perfectionist tendencies with a splash of OCD. That was the case for me a little bit. It wasn't very intense, but I do see that there is an interconnection of obsessive compulsive tendencies and behaviors. There often in the vaginismus realm can also be food challenges, eating challenges. There's lots of interconnections between our experience of pleasure that's sort of repressed and not fed from an erotic standpoint, and looking for that nourishment, for that sensation, for that pleasurable experience, therefore, in food, or finding a sense of safety in controlling our experience of eating in order to feel like we've got it all together. And there's, of course, so much to it more than that. But um, yeah, if you could relate to some of the food challenges, let us know. So, which themes or parts of my story could you relate to? Have there been any aha moments or light bulb moments so far that have you realized, like, oh, I didn't know that was connected? Just checking here, our Facebook fam. Yeah, let me know. Shoot me a DM or a voice note to say which parts of our past did we move through, quote unquote, together, but without knowing that each other existed. And that happens to be the case so often that, we feel like we're alone in this, but at the same time, there are fellow Vaginismus sisters on the other side of the ocean, or even in our very own city, who feel just as alone. And hopefully, our community and spaces like these help us connect so as to release the isolation that had only increased the emotional suffering. So, a quick piece on the wider lenses now, and this widest lens that I'm referring to is the lens of trauma that's important for us to consider when understanding the protective body response of vaginismus. We go into much more with this in understanding trauma in other trainings inside of Sexually Liberated that I'll tell you about a little later. But trauma is any event or ongoing situation that is less than nourishing, which causes pain, fear, feelings of helplessness. It really isn't about what happened to us, the nature of that event, or even the intention of those involved, because whether they meant it or not is not really part of the question. It's about what kind of impact it left in our nervous system, in our body. Just as is the case with two, sisters, just like my sister and I growing up in the same household with the same parents, I experienced vaginismus and she didn't. And of course, different events therefore register differently for us. So it is about the impact of the event, the impact it had on us. So what happened inside of the body, and it happens in the body, gets stored in the body, and we cannot control whether or not trauma gets inflicted, but we are in control of how we handled it, how we handle it now, right? Our response to it now. And it is absolutely possible to release the shackles of our past when it comes to trauma. So, whether or not you feel that you have experienced big T trauma or not, I am a believer that each one of us has experienced small t trauma in some way, shape, or form. And creating a list of experiences can actually be quite helpful for starting to be a little bit of a detective on some of the potential causes of vaginismus for you. Not that you need to know the causes of vaginismus in order to overcome them. We definitely don't need to know fully or at all even, but most of us do find this exploration quite interesting, and it does unveil some themes and layers that we can then more intentionally work with through the work, which is the nervous system work, the emotional work, the erotic, and only after that, the physical. So this is a wide lens that I invite you to consider. And now we're narrowing into another few lenses that help us understand vaginismus. The first one being closing in protection. That is what vaginismus truly is. It is an act of closing, and it is a protective mechanism in response to something that our body or our mind registers as a perceived threat. Vaginismus protects us from re-experiencing the pain of the past, whether it was physical or emotional pain of vulnerability, leading to disappointment, fear, and shame. And penetrative sex is the most vulnerable thing that we could do as women, as humans who are intended to allow another human being inside of us through a penetratively sexual act. That is a very vulnerable thing. And so if we had been hurt in the past, we naturally have put up walls around our heart in order to protect us from future pain. And we could have done the very same around our yoni, a Sanskrit word for womb. So the heart closes first and the pussy follows. So it's important to consider in this journey moving forward that if we are wanting to open at our sexual organs, at our genitals, that we also need to consider opening the heart and therefore going through the emotional processing of the other non-physical wounds that may have left us wanting to run away from vulnerability and from true connection, true intimacy. The word intimacy, I like to say it's into me, you see. Into me, you see. And many of us haven't allowed others and also ourselves to really have an inside look at our deepest vulnerabilities into our hearts. Once we start to do that, we also then open the door for our vulva, our vagina to be in on that journey of opening. When it comes to closing and protection, coming out of this, and of course it's much easier said than done, but opening your heart and pussy as a result of safety is the way to go. So we need to land an experience of safety within our body and our nervous system. So I am safe to open to myself and those who I select as my safe spaces. With others, I set healthy boundaries. So this is a nice statement you may want to take away with you. Of course, repeating it as an affirmation in my experience, because that's a purely conscious thing of repeating it, is not going to really get down to the deeper layers of the iceberg, which is our subconscious. So we want to be doing more intentional work with the subconscious and with the nervous system in order to recreate our reality, in order to reprogram our subconscious minds. But it is a nice reminder for us. So the reason I also included setting healthy boundaries is that we are not expected and we should not be opening to just anyone. We need to be selective and choosy with the people who deserve our surrender, our, I guess, lens into the deeper parts of us, to be let to see into us. So we select the safe spaces, and with others, we set healthy boundaries. The next lens that can be helpful is the lens of stress. At the end of the day, we hold stress in tissues, in our fascia, and muscle groups of all sorts. And we also can hold stress in the pelvic floor muscles. As Vaginismus Sisters, that is the area where it seems like most of our stress, in a way, has pulled to. And we can, from this lens, consider the simplicity of simply taking the stigma out of the equation. Addressing our pelvic floor muscles is simply another muscle group. And of course, that is not going to be the full equation because there's so many intricacies here, but it is nice sometimes to just notice, maybe it doesn't have to mean so much about myself that my body has chosen to store stress in my pelvic floor muscles. How can we address that in a physical way by resetting the nervous system, pelvic floor relaxation exercises, myofascial release, and all the other good stuff we're going to get into when we talk about the present and the future going forward. So, we have to learn to manage our response to external triggers and reduce the toll of stress. The statement here, I focus on what I can control, release what is not mine to hold, and prioritize taking care of myself. Coming back into a healthy relationship with that self-care. The next lens to consider is stifled expression. I already touched on this a bit. Vaginismus helps us hold it all together emotionally and upkeep the good girl identity. Kind of like that container. We got to hold it all together. Many of us don't have a lot of interaction with the wild woman part of us, with the crazy, the fully expressed, the chaotic, the I deserve to take up space, bad girl part of us, that wild woman. And reconnecting to her is part of the journey as well. So, the bottom of the container that carries our suppressed emotions, and as they intensify, the container must fortify to hold them. We must have more of that ball in our throat in order to not say something that we feel doesn't belong or is going to get us in trouble. And we also need to hold our erotic aliveness back in occasions that we have to uphold that good girl identity. In certain contexts, this has served us. In our past, our good girl identity has served us, and we need to know when to set her aside and invite the other parts of us that we may not be as acquainted with just yet to center stage to be our spokesperson. So that is another relationship to evolve with. Creating a habit of full spectrum expression. I deserve to take up space with my voice and my expression, and I do this regularly through breath, movement, and sound. These are the three principles of Tantra. A lot of the somatic, aka body-based practices we do together, are including those three principles of breath, movement, and sound. And of course, sound also includes our voice in any way, including using words. So we get to embrace that full spectrum of our expression, knowing that we deserve to express our desires, our boundaries, our needs, how we're feeling, what we don't want. That is also part of the practice of releasing our expression and not having it be so stifled anymore. And the last lens we'll explore is safety and control. So you already know what I mean by this. We have found safety within having a sense of control over our lives and our bodies. And as long as the survival strategy is still active within our system, it would be very hard to experience penetrative sex because penetrative sex requires finding safety in surrendering, in opening, and feeling safe in the presence of another person or with ourselves, and in feeling safe in the unknown as a whole. So that is very, very deep work. Finding safety and surrender and trust in the unknown. With the help of the protection mechanisms that continue to serve me and my self-trust, I find it easy to sink into a state of surrender whenever feels right. So that is where we're moving to. That's the direction we're going. And again, as a reminder, vaginismus is not something to cure. It is not something to heal. We're not broken. We don't need curing. It is a switch. And right now, vaginismus may be active in your body. It is active in your body. We are learning how to, with our intention and with our skills on a mental, emotional, and physical level, and you could also argue spiritual level, to gently flip that switch off. Understand all the ways that it has served us in the past and how we don't quite need it anymore. We don't need that protection anymore. And a big part of that is actually taking back the responsibility of our protection to our voice, to our expression, to our holding of ourselves, rather than having our yoni, our vulva, our vagina, be the one responsible for our protection. So we'll speak on this tomorrow with some of the tips that I have for you, because we're about to get into some of the practical components as well around how to do this and what does that exchange look like. That's taking back of responsibility from our vagina, who had decided she needs to be the one to make sure we're safe. If we let her know that we'll take it from here, that we've got her, that we're listening to her and her authentic yeses and nos, and we're going to honor those, then perhaps she'll have a chance to lean back, to rest a little bit, to feel like there's a lightness in her flaps again, and to actually lean into her authentic yeses coming to life rather than feeling like she needs to hold tight to those no's that weren't heard before and weren't honored before by us and our free will. So that's the journey, flipping the switch. As a home play activity, before we go, I invite you to fill in the blank here. When it comes to your relationship with your body, say, "Dear body, I love you for blank." Dear body, I love you for looking out for me. Dear body, I love you for taking me places. I love you for the adventures that you've made possible. If there's anything that comes to mind right now, please drop it in the chat. Let me know. I forgive you for, dear body, I forgive you for limiting me. I forgive you for, yeah, what comes to mind? I forgive you for the pain that you put me through, for the pain that we experienced together. I forgive you for not listening to what I wanted. And I honor the fact that you had your own desire and priority. And I promise that I'll take care of you. I promise that I'll listen more closely. I promise that I'll give you the rest that you need. I promise that I'll touch you with love, and I'll only let you be touched with love by others. I promise that I'll protect you. This is the instigation of that mind to body connection, that closer relationship with this vessel, with this home, with this vessel that we get to call home in this life. And connecting to her in this way can prove to be quite nourishing and quite beautiful. So, insights, please reflect. Let me know in the chat now, or send me an email or a message on social media. What is an insight that you're taking away? Let's hear one or two. What's an insight you're taking away? What landed today as either a reminder that you're happy that you now recall a little more freshly, or maybe it was something new that you hadn't quite considered before? Tell me, what's an insight you're taking away? And for yourself, you can decide a plan of action of how you'll put it into practice. It's okay. What's an insight you're taking away? And I know this is quite personal stuff. If it feels right, if it feels good to share, please do. And questions. What questions come up for you from today's initiation? Where is there that curiosity that's been stirred up? Or maybe there is a bit of a disbelief in some of the things I shared and you'd like to go deeper. Like, what questions come up? We must honor those directions that our consciousness takes us to like, huh, this doesn't quite make sense to me. Let's understand, let's go deeper. Or maybe there's a question that you have for yourself in understanding your own relationship to yourself and your body a little bit better. Dee says, I must respect myself more. Hmm, that's a big one. And I honor you for naming that, for being truthful with yourself in that. And I can very much relate to not respecting myself in the way that I wanted other people to respect me. But interestingly, we cannot receive what we do not give to ourselves. If we want to receive a special kind of care and attention and love from a partner, but we don't give that to ourselves, then there's a little bit of a disconnect there, isn't there? We want to be steeped in that experience of grace with ourselves, respect for ourselves, commitment to our word and to what we've decided is good for us, is nourishing to us, and follow that thread in manifesting that relationship with ourselves. And only then, has been my experience, we can also create and attract and curate that relationship with another human being who is going to treat us in the way that we already treat ourselves. Because we have taught our body, our nervous system, our subconscious that this is what we deserve. Only through our actions can we really do that. So this truly is a really deep personal growth journey and initiation. Thank you for sharing, Dee. And finally, what are your celebrations? What are you celebrating about yourself? Everyone that I support knows that this is our traditional question that I ask at the end of every single call as a reminder and as an invitation to celebrate ourselves because we do not do this often enough. We are so free to be celebrating others, to be complimenting others, to be honoring and seeing others' progress and growth and wins in life. But when I ask the question of what are you celebrating about yourself today, quite a few fellow Vaginismus sisters get stumped. So tell me, what are you celebrating about yourself today? What are you going to honor yourself for today? What comes to mind? As a bonus, I invite you to find an actual way to be in celebration of yourself that looks like something different perhaps, or something similar to what you already know you enjoy, but that maybe you don't gift yourself often enough, like a nice walk outside in the park as a form, as a physical manifestation of that celebratory energy. Because there's one thing for us to say, I celebrate my vulnerability today. That's something that I'm celebrating. I celebrate my vulnerability and openness and comfort in being vulnerable and open and real and raw with you. And me dancing later tonight to celebrate that is going to be the stamp, the physical experience of that celebratory energy. So I would love to know how you like celebrating yourself, and if you'd like to share with me what you are celebrating about yourself. And since this is all about our revolution, the revolution is not an apple that falls when it's ripe. You have to make it fall. You have to inspire it. You have to take action. You have to move yourself. We often look in life for other people to move us, to be a catalyst for change for us. But at the end of the day, no one else can do this for you. There's no way. That's just not how life works. Just like you may have experienced a difficulty potentially in your current relationship or past relationships in changing your person to better suit your needs and to help you feel safe in their presence, to change who they are in order to find that state of comfort within yourself. You may have already found that that's been quite hard to do. In fact, I would say impossible. People change only when they decide to change. Only when there's that inner drive, inner fire, and motivation and spark and desire to change. So if you feel like you have changed your partner, I would invite you to consider that they changed for themselves and potentially also for you, but they did it themselves, just like you have to do it yourself. So the revolution is you being in action. And you being here is already that. So I celebrate you big time for showing up for yourself. You are an active player in your erotic revolution. You're an active player in writing your own love story, flipping to that next page, opening that new chapter and saying, huh, I gift myself a new beginning. And all of the past ties into the beautiful love story that has made you who you are today in order to even start a new beginning. But it is nice to know that you're in control. The giveaway. I promised to let you know how you can enter our giveaway. We have a generous sponsor that you may have already read about in some of my emails. I'm going to keep it a secret because this giveaway is going to be an exciting one for you to explore. In order to enter the giveaway, either email me or DM me on Instagram at Vaginismus Sisters or anywhere else that we have started a conversation. Simply DM me sexually liberated, and I'll know that you want to enter the giveaway. I will note you down and we will announce a winner at the end of this event. By messaging me sexually liberated, I also consider this as an intention for you to check out the sexually liberated space. And if you want to, I'll send you some details on that. And I'll be also sharing more about sexually liberated tomorrow and the next day as we dive deeper with the present and the future of your erotic revolution. So that's how you can enter the giveaway. These are more of our fellow Vaginismus sisters that do prove that this is possible. That a sex life free of shame, suppression, and physical pain is in the cards for you. And if you'd like to read those stories, simply go to katrinwithlove.com/love diary and head to either the sister stories or the testimonial section for that little spark of hope and confidence and drive in case you are wanting to source that a little bit from outside of yourself in order to, I guess, vibrate with that you already hold within yourself. We just need to knock on that door and awaken a little bit more of that drive and hope and inspiration and, yeah, desire to be in action with your own erotic revolution. And that completes day one. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so proud of you. I honor you for your time, for your love that you're showing yourself, and for knowing that healing does happen in sisterhood and not in isolation. So you being here and being connected to your fellow Vaginismus sisters is a really big deal. And again, I'm really proud of you for that. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, and I'm going to see you tomorrow for day 2.